Hi, I'm Brian Dorrington, Director of Municipal Programming at LTC, and I'm here with Jim Peters, Lowell historian, TV personality, radio personality, and welcome to Lowell Remembers, and we're going to be talking about, well, what are we going to be talking about today,
We're going to be
Jim?
talking about boxing today.
Yeah, boxing in Lowell. There's a big history of boxing in Lowell. Of course, we know the big popular names from the big Hollywood movie, The Fighter, of course, Dickie Eklund and Mickey Ward. But we're going to talk about maybe some lesser-known guys. And then we're going to finish with an interview we did with Arthur Romalo over at the Romalo West End Gym. So stay tuned for that at the very end. All right, Jim, why don't you start us off? What do we need to know about boxing?
Well, we asked people to submit information they had on boxers in Lowell, and we did get some people doing that.
We did?
We did, and they got some interesting information from some of them. And one of them that we talked about was Bobby Kostakos, whose picture is hanging in Brothers Pizza on Merrimack Street. He was a Greek fighter, and he was a hometown boy, and he had a pretty stellar career. He did well. The one I wanted to talk about was the 1911 fight between Bobby Wilson of Canada and Peter Sullivan, who was from the United States, was from Massachusetts.
Now that 1911 fight, that carries over from our last episode, right?
Right, our last episode on the car race.
The car race.
Right.
So this was, remember we knew that there was a boxing event. We didn't know much about it, but I think Jim was able to go into the library and do some digging, and you found out who the combatants were.
Yes, they were, as I said, Bobby Wilson of Canada and Peter Sullivan of the United States. And they were the heavyweight boxers of the time. And Bobby Wilson was roundly defeated by Peter Sullivan of the United States. And it was a well-attended venue, and they had a great fight. Lasted about 6 rounds, I think, and Bobby and Peter Sullivan took it. I also wanted to talk about the Lowell Auditorium, because the Lowell Auditorium, the Lowell Auditorium. Yeah. Because the Lowell Auditorium gets packed every year with Golden Gloves fighters, and they used to be packed with silver mittens, but based on our talk with Arthur Romalo, I got the impression that silver mittens is no longer, because you have to be 18 years old.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
Is that what that what sounds like what he said? And so the Golden Gloves is still a major venue for amateur boxing, and it's filled. It's close to filled every year with people who just come in to watch the boxing. Yeah,
and I just wanted to.
Lowell has a tremendous reputation for boxing.
I wanted to point out that one of the Golden Gloves in 1973. In Lowell featured Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Aaron Pryor, and Leon and Michael Spinks. For any of you boxing fans, you probably know those names, world champions. So they were all at the same Golden Gloves in Lowell in 1973, and I think that they said that that's probably probably the best boxing talent that's ever been in Lowell at a single time in one place, having all those great fighters.
I would think that would be the biggest boxing talent we've ever seen in Lowell.
Yeah, I think so. I would have loved to have been at that Golden Gloves.
I mean, can you imagine, did you say Marvin
Marvelous Marvin? Yeah.
Okay,
and Sugar Ray Leonard?
And Sugar Ray Leonard, oh boy, that would have been quite a thing to see. I do have a story about Jack Kerouac. A friend of mine went down to Nick's bar off Central Street, and went up and introduced himself to Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac was in a mood that day and threw a punch at him and hit him in the face and knocked him down.
So that's street fight boxing, I guess you would say.
Street fight boxing, yeah.
Bare knuckle.
He wasn't in the ring, but he was definitely throwing punches that day. So the friend of mine was in fact a boxer, and he probably could have taken Kerouac apart, but
he let him go.
Let him go.
Yeah. Well, Kerouac was a boxing fan, I think.
Yeah.
In one of his, I'll talk about later more about that, but
yeah.
So
Kerouac was a boxing fan.
Yeah.
And the other person that we had that fought Mike Tyson and finished with a record of 10-23 was Dan Halpin of Lowell.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a journeyman that fought like a lot of big guys. I think he also fought Tex Ritter, Tex Cobb. Tex Ritter said. So he fought Tex. He said he's a country. Yeah, he fought Tex Cobb, who's actually an actor as well. And there's a video on YouTube that you can actually see of Halpin versus Tyson. Halpin loses. It's one of Tyson's earliest fights, but it's on YouTube. Can see that they say it was one of Tyson's first actual real challenges against a legitimate heavyweight professional. So that's something you can check out.
I was pleased with Arthur Romano talking about Mickey Ward.
Yeah.
He helped train Mickey Ward when Mickey Ward was a youngster. And to me that was something, because I still have my plastic wrapped DVD of The Fighter.
Yeah, you didn't
open it yet. I'm waiting for time to open it and just watch it carefully, and have a good time with it. But Mickey Ward is definitely mentionable, and
sure.
He was quite a fighter, and so was Dickie Eklund.
Yeah.
So
and the movie didn't even cover the whole trilogy he had with the Toro Gotti, which was one of the best boxing trilogies of all time. I mean, those fights are great, and hopefully that'll be. I think they've talked about maybe having a sequel about that featuring the Toro Gotti trilogy. We're not sure yet, but hopefully, because that was really where he made his huge name for himself, where he became the world famous Mickey Ward after that trilogy with the Toro Gotti. So
he became the world famous Mickey Ward with that, and he obviously became the world famous Mickey Ward with his being on the movie.
Of course, yeah.
With now who is the gentleman who portrayed him?
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg. Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember his last name.
And then Christian Bale played Dickie Eklund in that one.
And he won the Oscar for that one.
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that one back out. I think he did one.
I'm pretty sure he did.
I think he took home some Oscars. Good movie.
It was a good movie. Anyway, so I wanted to hand it over to you for Al Mello, because I don't know that much about Al Mello.
Well, I didn't either. And when we met with Art, we were kind of looking for people to talk about that might not be known. And there was a poster on his wall, and he pointed at that guy, said Al Mello, and I think he said he might have been the best or one of the best. His name was Al Mello Tavares. He was the stocky Portuguese battler. Battler was his name. And he had a great career. He was an Olympic and amateur national champion. He wasn't. He was in the Olympics, but he was a national champion, and he fought as a pro in the welterweight division. His record was very impressive: 42 wins in 10 years with 22 knockouts.
Now he fought one of Arthur Romano's kids, right? Didn't we hear?
I don't think so. No, so he was in 1924. So he was in the 1924 Olympics. Okay. I should have probably said that. That was in Paris, 1924 Olympics.
I thought that when we looked at that poster, it was from the 1950s. So.
He's got a lot of posters in there.
He's got a lot of posters.
So it's a cool place. You guys should check it out if you haven't before. But the crazy thing about it is 42-10 in 6 years.
Right.
I mean, so fighting that many fights in 6 years is just unheard of these days. Floyd Mayweather, towards the end of his career, was fighting, when he was still fighting twice every year. I mean, now the big top professional boxers might only fight 4 times a year, and that's considered a lot. So to fight 52 fights in 6 years, with rounds being 15 rounds back then, that takes a toll on the body. And these guys weren't making big money and stuff like they were back then. But of those 10 losses I have here, 4 of them were actually disqualifications for low blows. So he had a reputation of being a dirty fighter. If you get 4 DQs from low blows, so that means he only had 6 legitimate losses. And I think that he was never actually officially KO'd. He was TKO'd twice, and one of them, I believe, was his last fight, which I'll get into later. But he was ranked as high as number 4 in the world in the in the welterweight division. Which is, and this is by Ring Magazine, which he was also on the cover of, and I believe it was maybe 1927. But one of his, so he was the 4th best welterweight, ahead of Hall of Famers Gorilla Jones and Tommy Freeman, who are Hall of Fame boxers. But this was actually one of the really cool things that I found, is that they actually had a Battle of Lowell at Fenway Park.
I read about that.
Yeah, couldn't find the exact year. So it was against Irish Billy Murphy against Al Mello, and Murphy was the boxer, and I guess Mello was the puncher. And so these were both Lowell fighters, and both southpaws, which was actually kind of different, and especially at the time. And that drew thousands of people there. And Al Mello ended up winning, and he went on to have the bigger name in Lowell. But Billy Murphy was great in his own right. And it's funny, they both actually went on to open bars and restaurants after their careers when they retired. Yeah, so I have written here that, so 12,000 people attended that Fenway Park match.
Wow.
Mello won by a close decision. And then they did have a rematch that didn't go so good for Billy Murphy. He got TKO'd and the corner threw in the towel at the same time, so he kind of got beat in the rematch. But I guess it was a great, kind of bloody, scrappy battle at Fenway and Lowell. So that was that would have been cool to see back then too.
There were a lot of good fights that would have been cool to see.
Yeah.
The one that I like is the one Arthur Romalo was picked. He was bringing a group of people up to Maine to fight, and they didn't have a heavyweight. And one of his friends said to him, "Well, you fight."
They told Arthur to fight?
They told Arthur to fight. And he said that he was like, I forget what he said, but I'm like 36 years old or something. But he did it, and he won.
He won?
Yeah.
No, he didn't tell us that story there.
He walked away with $400.
Wow.
That was a big deal. So he tell. I don't remember what part of the story he did tell us, but he went up to Maine and fought.
Wow.
At 36 years old. Or maybe even a little bit older than that, but I'm not sure. But that was an interesting story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an interesting gym over there. I wanted to follow up with Mello's kind of. He had a great career. It was short career, only 6 years, like I said. And I guess I could say the sad thing is he was done at age 24. He was considered, completely shot past his prime. And he had fought a fighter named Brolard, who was another Canadian fellow. And that was one of his only TKO losses, and he got beat pretty bad in that fight. And after, again, he never fought there again. That was at the Boston Garden, so he had to retire at the age of 24.
But he fought at the Boston Garden in Fenway Park.
He fought at the Boston Garden. He fought at Fenway Park. He was in the Paris Olympics in 1924. He was a national amateur champion and a pro. And I had to do a lot of digging. And he was on the cover of Ring magazine. So I'm not sure how many people know this, know about Al Mello, but hopefully we can bring some more attention to him. And his restaurant was Al Mello's Restaurant. I don't think it's still around. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember Al Mello's Restaurant, but I did meet a person who claimed to know quite a bit about boxing at the election.
Oh, okay.
Night, and he said he would be happy to come on board and talk to us about Lowell in its prime. Back in the 1940s and 1950s.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to hearing from him.
Well, that's what this show's about. We like getting facts, but we love personal stories even more, which you will hear coming up shortly, we promise, from Arthur Amalo. A lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we send it over to Art?
No, I think we're ready to send it over to Art.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching this edition of Lowell Remembers. We're going to be back with a new topic soon. Haven't figured it out yet, but we will. We always come up with new and interesting stuff, hopefully. Hopefully you enjoy it. So we're going to kick it over to Art, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, I wanted to ask you first about your... I remember Joe Downs telling me that you went to Maine and ended up boxing in Maine on a last bet type of thing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that story?
Well, I was 37 years old at the time, and I went to Maine with a bunch of my fighters, and Sam Silverman come over. Well, actually, one of the other trainers from Lowell came over and he said, "You want to box?" I haven't boxed in 15 years, but I want to box for. He says, like a sparring session, the main event didn't show. And I'm thinking, he says, it's going to be 8 rounds, you're going to get $200 for yourself. I said, geez, I could use the money because half the kids that went paying down my gym to keep the bills going. I said, a sparring session? Sure. I said, okay. Fight goes off, this guy's throwing bombs. The guy started with, he's 6'5", name's Backer Foley. He hit me with everything he threw. I don't know how he didn't knock me out. I was hurt and everything. Bell rang in the first round, that was it. Now, to make a long story short, the promoter comes and hands me $400, Sam Silverman. I said, what's this? He said, that's all I told the guy I was going to give you. The other guy was ready to clip me $200. Yeah. But them were the past, that were the old days. Yeah.
Okay, well, who are some of the fighters that you've had? And I know you used to have a sign up here saying Mickey Ward trained here.
Yeah, I started Mickey when I was 7 years old.
Right.
It was over in Western Avenue at my gym before it burned down. I trained Dickie before him. Dickie brought him in the gym one day. I worked with him, Bobby Kostakis, my 3 sons, Matty Ross from Bellrica, Bo James. Yeah, occasionally with Larry Carney, I helped him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them. We had a lot of good fighters through the days. Yeah.
So, what can you tell us about Mickey Ward? He obviously is the one that everybody thinks of when they think of boxing and Lowell.
Yeah. Mickey, when he first started, Mickey was a left-hander. We turned him around because at that time we had a hard time getting fights for southpaws. Dickie was a left-hander too originally.
Was he?
Dickie,
was he? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, Mickey's a good thing for Lowell because Mickey's a real good kid.
Yeah.
And he's smart. He still works now. He got a nice family going and everything else. So he's got a pretty good life ahead of him. Yeah.
So, what do you look for in a boxer?
Well, you look at the kid with a lot of stamina. The kid's willing to train hard, really be serious.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, another fighter here was a pretty good fighter, Jim McNally. He just retired from the FBI.
Okay.
He was a kid out of Wilmington, but he's come down here and fight. Yeah.
So he was what
He
was
was
he
a
a
light
welterweight?
heavyweight.
Was he a
Light
heavyweight?
heavyweight.
Light heavyweight?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was your son?
My son David was a featherweight.
Is a featherweight?
Yeah. He's the only one that went pro. My other two sons both won gold gloves, everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
but they never went full.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the Golden Gloves. Lowell is such a boxing town, such a boxing city. The Golden Gloves are legendary.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about the Golden Gloves, and what does it take for people to compete in that level?
Well, now starting this year, you have to be 18 to fight in the gloves. Years ago, you could be 17. They just changed the rules. It's a great tournament. They have a novice tournament. Is anybody under 10 fights. Their 11th fight, they have to go open. You know.
Right.
That's what better fighters. All the open fighters that win down here or in the Golden Gloves, they go on a trip every year to what they call nationals. It's a good thing for kids. They're gone a whole week, all expenses paid and everything else.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And a lot of your top pros get through the Golden Gloves. They get the experience and stuff and step up from there, you know. I'll tell you a great fighter you had out of Lowell. One of the greatest, El Mello.
Okay.
There's this poster right there.
Oh, all right, yeah.
His real name was El Tavares. He used to own Mello's Cafe.
Oh, okay. So you call him El Mello.
No, I call
Because
him Mel because my dad used to own a restaurant. He used to eat my father's restaurant. That's how I knew him.
Oh,
when I was a
okay.
little kid.
Okay.
Yeah. Great guy.
He's a good fighter. And how good was Lou Brouillard?
They were both good fighters. I think Mello beat him for the championship out of Worcester. That were the fights out of the guy in Worcester. So, look at the tickets there, 50 cents.
I noticed 50 cents on the dollar, yeah. That's great.
See, let me tell you what boxing, well, my opinion anyway, this is the greatest thing in the world. You know how many kids we keep out of trouble in here? I even had the police department send kids up here and we turn them right around, you know?
Yeah.
You keep them active, keep them busy, and get them involved in sports, not only boxing, any kind of sports. I think it keeps them out of trouble. You know?
I have one thing. Can you just tell us a little bit about the history of this gym and how you got started?
Okay. I used to be a chef at Middlesex County Training School. I tell you, I was brought up in the Western,
Right,
my dad
right.
owned the Western. And the kids used to run away once in a while on weekends. That was in our Chancellor Training School. So I said to Mr. Cronin, he was a superintendent, I said, you know, you got a beautiful gym here. What about after supper, if we come up and train some of these kids for the Silver Mittens? They'd probably cut down the runaway. Great idea, Art. He thought it was great. So his son helped me train the kids. So I used to bring them up 5:30. The kids I started there, like Dickie Eklund was one of them, with my son Artie and them.
Right.
So the count went way down and the kids ran away on the weekends, just to count this boxing program. Then when Paul Songus became county commissioner, they closed the training school down.
Right.
So at that time I was promised I went to work for the city of Lowell and the council and agent director, you know?
Right.
So that ended that, but that's how I get into it.
Yeah,
Then-
now your daughter-in-law is still there, right?
Michelle's there now, yeah.
Michelle's there now, right?
Then I went down to, I brought Dickie Eklund, I think one of my sons, Dennis Freeman, about 4 or 5 kids I was training, bring them up to training school and help me with the other kids, you know?
Right.
So I put them in the gym down on Western Avenue. That was the original name of the West End gym. So the guy says, how much will it charge me for I want to bring, there was 5 of them, because I remember he said $50, and he usually charges the trainer, but he won't charge me. I said, Jesus, this is what I give them the $50 anyway. Next time I went down, the next day with all my kids, there's a padlock on the door. They never paid their friggin' bills, and the landlord was sick of me. Oh, that's how I said, you've got to be kidding me.
Wow.
So I got a hold of him, and he was pretty good about when I talked to him. He said, they haven't paid him for 6 months. They put the electric bill under somebody else's name, this month the gas on someone else, the plumber month to keep things going, you know? So that's how I got started. And it's something I like. I like to see kids progress. You know?
Yeah.
We got a lot of up-and-coming kids here now, pretty good talent, you know?
Now you're going to have to move at some point.
Well, the landlord hasn't sold the building yet. It's an awful thing to say, but I hope he don't sell. The thing that hurt me, I thought we were going to have to get out of here a couple of months ago, and I started breaking the ring down, and I started looking around. I said, where the hell did I get all this stuff over the years, you know? Figures, that'll be a tough move when I move, but no. But he told me I'll be here through the gloves, because the gloves are very, very important to me, you know? I don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm the only gym in Lowell. I got to keep it going, you know?
Now when are the gloves?
Starts in January.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the exact date yet, but yeah.
Oh, I have a friend who swears by the gloves. Goes all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's an exciting thing for him. So he likes coming and seeing the gloves.
Yeah, I stop and think. I've been in this for 53 years now.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think, you don't realize it, It's something that keeps you out of trouble anyway. It keeps me active,
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. I mean, I think the things that you've done for the youth of Lowell are really impressive.
I don't mind doing it. I enjoy it too,
Yeah.
I just don't I don't like to see these kids go the wrong way. That's one of the main purposes.
Yeah. So you have some really hard-working people out there.
Well, I got some great trainers. I got Brian Powers. He fought. All my trainers are my old fighters.
Yeah.
My son Joey, my son David, Brian Powers, Luther Lucas. They're all here with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't do much now. I just supervise.
Right. No.
But they're doing all the hard work. Yeah.
You always need a supervisor.
Yeah.
So that and a secretary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
I'm glad to do it anytime.